while we were visiting prior to getting things going with our service, I heard Bill say to John, "Are you a Packer fan?" John said he was. And I share that with you because I want you to think about, if you're a football fan, regardless of who your favorite team is, I want you to think about how you watch a game. If you watch one on Sunday afternoon or Monday night or Sunday night, generally when you watch a football game and you're rooting for one side or the other, you follow the ball, don't you? Wherever the ball is, the quarterback throws the ball, the camera follows the ball, you follow the ball. Even if you're there in person, when you go and watch a football game, you tend to follow the football. Except if you've been invited to attend a game for someone special. Let's say that it is your grandson or your nephew, or it's a family member who's playing for some school, and then you go and you watch the football game totally differently. You watch your family member. You watch your loved one. You don't follow the ball anymore. Maybe your loved one is playing left tackle. You don't even care where the ball is. You're just watching them. That's what I want you to do tonight. Because we're going to take a look at Luke chapter 15. And we're going to look at the parable of the prodigal son that begins at verse 11. And when we read this story, when we look at this story, we tend to follow the ball, which is to follow the prodigal son. I don't want you to pay much attention tonight to the prodigal son. I want you to pay attention to the Father. I want you to watch his position, his actions, his heart for every verse. Even when he's not in the picture and we're reading about the son who's way far away, I want you to keep your focus on the Father. Okay? Don't follow the ball. Don't follow the Son. Stay in touch with the Father as we go through this study tonight. Okay? Now, Luke chapter 15, beginning at verse 11. And the reason now that we're going to follow the Father at all times is it's... Oh, I have another Bible. You guys go. Oh, there's one here. Share. You're welcome to, but I've got one here. Right here. And the reason we're going to keep our eyes right there on the Father is because the Father is undoubtedly meant to be God, the Father, in this story. I mean, we learn about God the Father through looking at the Father in this story. It's teaching us about who God the Father is. So here we go. We're in Luke chapter 15, and we're going to begin at verse 11. And our first little movement is going to take us here through verse 16. And we're going to learn. And he said, this is Jesus, is the he. There was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of property that's coming to me." And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had, and he took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and he hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. All right? Here's the first thing with the Father that we've got to look at, is that the Father respected his younger son's free will. Now, this Father was deep, make no mistake about this, the Father was deeply grieved by his son's words and actions. He was hurt, but he still respected his son's free will, and he sent his son off. He gave him what he asked for. He gave him his part of the inheritance, and he sent him off, respecting his free will. You know what? I think everybody in this room, if we're really honest with ourselves, we had that day with God. We walked away from him. And we grieved his heart, and we broke his heart. But he respected our free will. And then the story continues. But I just want you to know, we've all been the prodigal son or the prodigal daughter that broke God's heart and walked away from home. Okay? We walked away from the Father's house. Now, let's continue on. Verse 17. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I will arise, and I'll go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And he arose, and he came to his father. But while he was still a long ways off, his father saw him and felt compassion. And he ran, and he embraced him, and he kissed him. Now, here's the second thing we need to see in the story about the father. I don't know how long the son was away. We're not told that. But it was a significant period of time. While the son was away, every single day the father held his son in his heart. Every day he was gone, he thought of his son and he wondered where he was and what he was doing. Was he okay? He held his son in his heart. He prayed and he waited. Every single day he waited and hoped that his son would come back to him. And I want you to know tonight, if you walked away from God, he's waiting, and he's watching, and he's hoping that today's the day you come back to him. Today. And if you don't come back today, he's going to do it again tomorrow. He's going to watch. He's going to wait. He's going to hope. And every minute that you're away, he's going to hold you in his heart. He's going to hold you in his prayers. Because that's what the Father does. Amen. Now, let's continue here in verse 20. I want to read verse 20 for you again. And he arose and he came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, and the only reason the father saw him was he was looking for him. I mean, it's because he was purposefully looking for him. While he was a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran. I want you to know something. That in this culture and in this time, men of dignity did not run. They didn't run for anything because it was beneath them. But I want you to know that the father ran to his son. He didn't give a hoot about his dignity when he saw his son. He only knew the love that he held in his heart for his son, and he took off running and tossed his dignity aside. I want you to think about that for a second. What Jesus did. It wasn't very dignified to hang on a cross. But he didn't care. He did it out of his love for you. It wasn't very dignified to be thrown in an unmarked grave. Jesus didn't care. It wasn't very dignified to be spit upon by Roman soldiers or have a crown of thorns jammed on his head or to be scourged. None of that was dignified. It was love. The Father loved the Son and he ran. God's willing to be undignified, to welcome you back. He's willing to run to you. He's willing to run to you. Now, let's go ahead. Let's go back and read the second part of verse 20 and go through verse 24. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet. And bring the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate. For this My son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Do you see what's going on here? The son is fully restored to the family. The father didn't say, yep, you can be a hired hand. You can sleep in the bunkhouse. You'll get this and you'll get that. And you'll earn everything that you get. And his father didn't say that. The father said, bring him a robe, bring him a ring, bring him sandals. Make a party because my son is back. My son is back. Fully restored, fully reconciled. The father welcomes him back. I am your father. You are my son. The relationship is fully reconciled and restored. There is no punishment for the son's prodigal ways. He doesn't have to make up for it somehow. He doesn't have to earn his way back into being a son. He is welcomed back as a son. He's back in the family. Now, it says here that way back up before, I'm back in verse 20 now, that it says there, the father felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. I remember a time, I can't remember just exactly how old that I was. I want to guess around 10, give or take a year or two, okay? But I lived out in a very rural area, and in most of my summer days like this one, I had to find a way to keep myself occupied. I didn't have brothers and sisters. I was an only child, and there weren't a lot of kids in the neighborhood. Most of the time, I had to figure out how to entertain myself. And one of the ways that I did that is I'd take a rubber ball, okay, size of a baseball, and I'd throw it up against the side of the house. Pretend I was in a baseball game. I mean, I had a little strike zone on there. I had a whole game going on in my head, all right? And I threw the ball. And I hit the screen door on the back of the house. And I broke the glass in the screen door. And so, being the young man of great courage that I was, I did exactly what Adam did in the Garden of Eden. I ran and I hid myself, for I feared my mother. What would she do when she saw that broken glass? What was I in for after having broken that glass? And you know what? Mother wasn't mad at me. She didn't punish me. None of the things that I expected. You see, you may have heard some of these things in your life, and maybe the son expected the father to say them to him, okay? Has anybody ever said to you in your life, how stupid can you be? And maybe the son expected that. Maybe he expected the father to say, how stupid could you be to run off the way you did and to do what you did? How stupid could you be? Maybe he expected the father to say, I told you so. If you would have listened to me, you never would have had to gone through all that. Because I told you so. I told you you'd throw your money away. I told you you'd come back crying to me. I told you so. You know what they say in some cultures? They say, you're dead to me. The minute you ran off, you were dead to me. I don't have a second son. I've got one son, and he's right over there. Father didn't say any of that. Father didn't say any of that. The father said, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to celebrate. The father said none of the things that can so deeply damage us. He said, my son is back. He was fully accepted. He was fully loved. he was fully reconciled. He's fully welcome back as a son. So, I want you to think about something with me for a second, okay? I know that this has happened to everybody in this room at one time or another because it's part of the human experience. But you've had a conflict with somebody. You know, you've been in conflict with somebody, and you probably both said some hurtful things, and you were estranged from that person. And over time, your heart began to remember what they had meant to you. And your heart began to soften towards them. But as you thought about reconciling with them, you thought, oh man, but what if they don't feel the way I do? What if their heart hasn't softened yet? And you held back because you didn't know how they felt. And you got into this area that we all find ourselves in, which is that we're scared of making the first move. Oh boy. Oops. God's made the first move. God's made the first. You don't have to wonder how God's going to react to you if you turn back to Him, if you go toward Him. He has made the first move. Jesus Christ has come. That's the first move. Jesus Christ has died on the cross for you. He's made the first move. You don't have to worry about how God will receive you. He has made the first move to open His arms and welcome you back to Him. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's a done deal. It's a decided matter. Father wants you back. Father wants you back as His son or His daughter. He wants you to live in the house with Him. He wants to give you your inheritance back. He wants it all for you. Every last bit of it. And if you will approach Him as He waits for you, He will run out to meet you and embrace you and welcome you home. You see, the Lord Jesus Christ came as prophet, priest, and king. And the message of Jesus Christ as prophet was this: come back home. The Father's waiting for you. The Father's watching for you. I have come from the Father to tell you to come back home. I am making the first move on His behalf to tell you to come back and have all of the benefits and blessings and great things that are true when you are a child of God. Come back home. Doesn't matter how long you've been away, the Father's been waiting every day. Don't worry about that, because that's what the devil says. You've been away too long. You can't go back now. You can't go back anytime. But you don't know what I've done. Doesn't matter. Don't believe that lie. When Satan whispers in your ear, but I've done too much. I've gone too far. No, you haven't. Come back home. Come back home. See, I don't know where you are tonight. Some of you I do, some of you I don't. But no matter where you are tonight, if you walked away from the Father, He's waiting for you. He sent Jesus to look for you and give you the word that you are welcome back home. So come on back home. The Father's arms are open wide. There's a room in the home for you, and the inheritance that you've always had in your name is waiting for you. Always. Y'all come back home. Come on. Let's just pray with me before I share a thought with you. For table talk. We're going to have about 10 minutes for table talk tonight. Lord, Father, may I see you in light of this story. You know, I read through my Bible, and you're on every page. Yeah, I know, but Lord, may I see you as the Father in this story, because that's who you are. The one watching, the one waiting, the one receiving and welcoming. Lord, there's so many folks that are rising up in my heart right now. Come back home. Come back home. And I want to give you a second there. At your table, just your own heart. I'm just going to let the room fall quiet. And I'm going to let you pray for a couple of people that you want to see come back home, that you're holding in your heart right now. And then we're going to have another prayer. But I just want to give you a moment of silence to do that. So many, Lord, so many in my heart that I long to run into your embrace. And now I want to talk about people in this room, Lord, because there may be people in this room who in seeing this story tonight have seen themselves as the prodigal son. And they're wondering if they're welcome back home. And the story has, without reserve, said, yes, yes. I just want to pray with you and encourage you. I want to walk with you right now up in the arms of the Lord. He's watching and waiting. He will embrace you and kiss you. Heaven will throw a party for you. I want you to know you can do that right here and right now. And you know what? The words aren't that important. The thief on the cross said, Father, into your hands the thief on the cross said, Father, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. That's all he said. And he was saved with that faith. That's how he expressed his faith. And Thomas just cried out, my Lord, my God. That was his expression of faith. It's the faith behind the words that come. So all you got to do is say, Lord, will you have me? Will you welcome me back home? Can I dine at your table again? Anybody needs to do that with the Lord right here and right now, we're going to give you a couple minutes to do that. So if you're home, everybody, and you're living in the Father's house, pray for those who might right now in this room be turning and walking to the Lord's embrace. I want you to know that if you turn to the Father tonight, you made his day. And all heaven's throwing a party right now. You're back home. You are home. In Jesus' name. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Amen. So we've got 8 to 10 minutes. Spend some time at your table tonight. Maybe you can share a story.